Hi, folks. This is Larry Rolla here, and I have a couple of special guys on the podcast today. They're from Australia, um, and two very, very interesting guys. Um, Marshall Dobson was the first one that got a hold of me, and he spoke. We spoke for about 2 hours, and then I was introduced to Darren Garrard, and that's who we'll be speaking with today. And we're going to cover as many topics as we can. Um, and we're going to probably do this, probably will be one of many podcasts that we'll do. So the first one, we're going to talk about whatever Marshall to talk about. And I just have a couple of questions right up front and one statement that I want to make. Darren has a son, Angus, and young kid. I think he's 19 years old. He went over 600 races. I think just the other day, I think it was Wednesday, he won 4 races in one night, which is quite a feat. And I love his colors. His colors, I think his colors are silver, blue, and red. And the kid looks like weighs about maybe 120 pounds. And I remember when I first started in the early 60s, they said that weight meant nothing. And then through the years, because when I started driving in the 60s, they had guys like Frank Safford and George Butterworth and Harold Story. All these guys weighed 250 pounds, 300 pounds. And then all of a sudden, here comes Lucien Fontaine, and here comes Bobby Frame, and here comes Carmine Abatello, all maybe 150 pounds. And all of that, them wise men tales that weight means nothing because you're above the wheels and you're starting from a running start. It's nonsense. So Angus has a real good jump on everything. It seems like he's extremely talented. He looks the part, and I mean, 600 races already. That's quite a feat. Now, folks, here's a race I want you to watch. It's a race that took place at Albin Park in Australia on Saturday night, October 14, 2023. It was a 9-horse field with 6 on the gate and 6 trailers. I want you to pay attention to the driver of the 4-horse, Cassie Washington, who is a 19-year-old kid, Angus Garrard, a young man who shows coolness, patience, aggression, and a great sense of pace. Here we go.
We're set. All the runners are on gate. There's the light. They're off and pacing, So Extra fast away from the inside. Melton Beach steps forward quickly, goes up to have a look at So Extra. Beach Villa deeper out, driving forward. Classy Washington behind them. Nürburgring down on the inside. Pocket the Cash, Elter Revelry, Miss Mucho. Let's Get Rockin' last and dropping down to the inside. The lead time 3.5. Out in front, So Extra. Beach Villa races up on his outside. He's only a neck away. Nürburgring able to hold leaders back. He's racing third. Melton Beach now with 1-1 cover. Let's Get Rockin'. 3 back on the inside, saving ground. Passing Classy Washington. Miss Mucho went to the inside. Pocket the Cash. Elder Revelry. He's now back at the tail. First quarter, 27.9. They work past the judge and the bell. So Extra blazing the trail out in front. Leading the way by a long neck. Beach Villa, he's got to do it the hard way. He cuts the breeze on the outside second. Nürburgring every chance. Leaders back third. Melton Beach, he's 1 by 1. Let's Get Rockin' fifth. 3 back the inside. Midfield the moving line. Classy Washington. Miss Mucho the inside.
After a first quarter and 27 seconds by the 3/8 pole, the lead horse starts slowing down the pace, jamming up the field, which was quickly felt by Angus, causing him to make, in my opinion, the 3-wide winning move.
Classy Washington moving up solo 3 deep. Nürburgring leaders back. Melton Beach locked in the box. There's no racing room. Now Miss Mucho, she was 4 fence. She's 3 deep with cover. Off the track and trying to improve. Pocket the Cash. Alta Revelry's about to come to the extreme outside. Then Let's Get Rockin'. Third quarter, 28 and 1. They're at the top of the lane. So Extra, defying running down, leads the way from Classy Washington. Look at Elder Revelry hitting top gear. He's starting to charge out wide. So Extra, Classy Washington, Elder Revelry. Classy Washington drives to the lead. Classy Washington takes the opener, beating Elder Revelry.
Now, in my opinion, that was a perfect drive by a very talented young man. I'm not sure if he wants to. There's a couple of top guys that came from Australia, drivers here and trainers. In fact, they took over this whole industry here in the States for maybe 20 years, 25 years. There were 4 or 5 that were on the top of the trainers list. And most of them stopped driving, probably because of Campbell and O'Donnell and a few other guys. But these guys from Australia were just as good as them. But for some reason, I think they probably stopped because they had such a training load. They had 50, 60, 70, 80 horses in training, and it was just too much. And they just start naming these other drivers. But I'm not sure, Darren, if your son wants to come this way, but I can only tell you my opinion. Harness racing in this area here is going downhill very rapidly. They're trying to save it. I don't know if they could or not. There's every driver here is a top-notch guy. And there's probably a colony of maybe 15 or 20 at Yonkers that race at Yonkers. And the same thing here at the Meadowlands. It's a tough grind. I'm not sure if he was my son, if I would recommend him coming here at this time. Not that he's not qualified or capable, but for the same reason that many of the drivers leave here, top drivers, because the first 3-4 best horses in the race have the same drivers. They're either using O'Donnell. This was a few years back, but it's the same thing now. They use the top drivers. There's 3 top drivers that are hooked up to 3 top stables. And what your son would get is probably 5th and 6th choice. And that's why a lot of talented guys leave here, because they could never really get a shot. So if he's coming here just as a driver, he's going to have a tough time at it, only because of that reason, and also because racing is, from 7 days a week now, they don't race 7 days a week, and they're trying to stop something that's failing very, very rapidly, and then they come with they're suspending guys like crazy because of all the drug rules, which we'll get into. So I'm not sure if I know he's talented. I heard about him, and but I'm not sure if this is the right time for him to make that move. But again, only because is he going to get a shot? They have 5-6 guys that are on every horse, every race at Yonkers, and the same thing here at the Meadowlands. So I don't know where he would fit in. And it would be sad. Like, I'll give you an example. Rick Planos had a kid, leading driver in California, and he came here and there was no place for him. Even though he was as good as these other guys, he couldn't get a mount that was better than 5th or 6th or 7th. And it's just a tough game. It's not like it was 20, 30 years ago. Unless he comes here with a stable of horses, which I doubt, because you're halfway around the world. And so I don't know, but I wish him a lot of luck, and I hope that maybe next time we do this, he could be part of it. There's a few things I'd love to ask him, because he got everything going for him. Right size, right? He got everything going for him. I just don't know if coming to the States is a good move right now. Anyway, what do you want to talk about, Marshall?
Well, Larry, just on that point that you made then, the age-old question, I guess, with harness racing has been whether it's a sport or whether it's an industry. What do you think?
Well, I don't think it's a sport anymore for a number of reasons. It used to be a sport years ago, when the trainers, uh, it wasn't as big as it was. It wasn't as big as it was now. There was Yonkers and Roosevelt, and that was it. And and the trainers drove their own horses, and the smaller guys, except for a handful of guys back in the 60s and 50s and 60s, the smaller guys all had second jobs. So it was, it was something to supplement their income, or because they just loved it. But through the years, as it went from a sport to a business, in my opinion, because they started syndications, big money came into the picture. Very wealthy people came into the game, like Lou Guida, vice president of Merrill Lynch. He brought millions and millions of dollars into it, and they made it, and they turned it into a business. So I would have to say it's a big business, and the sad part about it being a business that it turned into, everybody looks for an edge. Everybody wants to win because of the massive amount of money, not only in the purse money, but in the stake programs that they have. Even that's going to hell, because I remember maybe 20, 30 years ago, they were, I think, 10, 11, 12 races at the Meadowlands that went for over $1 million. And I think there's only one left that goes for $1 million. Maybe the Hamiltonian, I don't even know if the Meadowlands Pace goes for that much. I don't know. But to answer your question directly, in my opinion, it's a big business. Breeding business it's just got very, very big. Now, maybe at the smaller tracks where it's impossible to make a living, because I'll just give you another example of Monticello Raceway. In Monticello, in the 50s and 60s, the purse, the average purse was average $1,200, but it cost $20 to shoe a horse, and now it costs $120 to shoe a horse, and the purse money is exactly the same. So when you're racing at these small tracks, you have no choice but to get another job, or you'd starve to death. So maybe for the guys at the smaller tracks, maybe for them, they consider it a sport, something that they like to do other than their other job. In the New York, New Jersey area, it's a business. It's a big business. My friend Eric Cherry, he has over 300. I think he's the second largest breeder of standardbreds in the United States. I think he sold $85 million worth of yearlings last year. Now that's not a sport. That's to me, that's a business, and he conducts it as a business. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but my opinion is it's a business. It's a business. The vets are making tremendous amount of money. I think the average vet bill here, and I've been out of it now for 20 years, but even if I go back to when I was in it, the average vet bill racing at these tracks was probably $3,000 to $5,000 a month per horse. So when you have a stable like most of these guys do, like some of the guys from Australia, they have a veterinarian, and the veterinarian bill, if you have 40, 50 horses, and each horse is, just say their vet bill for the month, just a low vet bill would be $3,000. You time that by 50 horses, that veterinarian, that's a major business in both ways. And what they're doing now, these trainers, because now there's no more barn areas here, you'll have to ship from farms 40, 50, 60 miles. What they're doing now, years ago, they all bought them 8-horse slants, 6-horse slants, because they'd enter as many horses as they could a night, even if some didn't belong in the class, just to get the shipping money. So there was a lot of trainers years back, maybe the same thing today, that make as much money or more shipping horses, shipping 5, 6 a night, charging the owners $200, round trip. So if you have 6 horses in there, you're talking about maybe $1,000, $1,500 a night. You times that by 7. That's an extra maybe $7, $8, $10,000 a week that you get just from shipping horses. You give a guy for 500 a week to clean the truck and trailer and to drive the horses back and forth. And so to me, all of that, and I can go on and on and on, it's business. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. Darren would have a great idea because he's not only a trainer, a third generation trainer here, but his business, Garrard's Horse and Hound. Larry, you'd know it mainly, I guess, as something like Big Jim's Tack Room over there. Garrard's Horse and Hound is international, about 15 outlets in Australia and New Zealand, supplying tack to the racing industries and the horse racing and the greyhound racing industries as well. And Darren is also the head of the Horsemen's Association here in Queensland. So he'd have a pretty good idea on what you were talking about.
Well, that business, I was going to get into that business when when they start closing the barn area. All I knew my whole life was racing horses. And I've been doing it now since 1959. And when they closed the barn areas, and I had the troubles that I had, it's tough to be successful and then crash, and then be successful again and then crash. You don't get too many second chances. I got a second chance. I got a third chance. But by then, the game changed to the point where I couldn't get going. The owners left the business in droves. And there's no new owners coming in. And what supports the business now is the guys who are with the top trainers. And the reason I didn't get into the equipment business and open up some kind of harness shop like Big D's or like yours, Darren, is because nobody pays. They don't pay. There's a handful of guys that are good, doing well, that do pay. But it's once they, what are they going to buy? How many sets of hobbles are you going to buy? How many bridles? How many blankets? How many winter blankets? After a while, they're pretty well set. It's not like years ago, like Stanley Dancer. Every year, he got rid of all the race bikes, bought all brand new race bikes, bought all brand new jog carts, all new trunks. That's not today. They don't even use trunks. If they have 30 horses in the shed row, they probably have 2 trunks. Years ago, everybody had a trunk. Now, and now they don't need all. Years ago, when we cooled the horse out, they used 4 blankets. After 20 minutes, they took the top one off that was soaking wet. And today they hose them off with a hose and they walk them with a fly sheet. So you put that together with nobody pays, and that's why I didn't get into the same thing with the feed business. So I just elected to go out and write a book and hope something happens.
Larry,
I don't know how it is. I don't know how it is in Australia. Maybe the racing is different. I think in Australia, I think they have something like they have maybe 300-400 thoroughbred tracks and only maybe 50-60 harness tracks. So do you sell to thoroughbred people too?
Yes, Larry, we sell today. We specialise in harness and thoroughbreds, harness, and greyhound racing.
No, so you're in good shape. So
as well as yeah, we're sort of like we supply anything for the horses, dogs. They don't even have to be race horses. There's sport horses, camp drafting, cutting, stock horse, all that sort of thing. So we cover a fair range.
Let me ask you a question. Being that you're in that business, maybe you know. Years ago, many, many, many years ago, Brian Pelling came to the paddock one night and they call it a Pelling pacifier. It's a hood with the screen cups. Was that created down there where you are? And he brought it up here? Because prior to that, nobody ever saw a Brian Pelling pacifier.
Yeah, that was created by a jockey down here called Michael Pelling. he created that that thing to protect the horse's eyes, etc. And it was created here. It was actually created in Queensland, and it's gone from there.
Do you know that one day I trained both thoroughbreds and standardbreds at Monmouth. No, at Delaware Park, I had a thoroughbred, and the trainer couldn't do nothing with him, and it was a mare, and she got worse and worse and worse, and before you know it, if she saw if anything on a track at all, she would just bolt or run around it. She was just getting worse and worse, and they examined her eyes and everything was fine, but she just got worse and worse and worse. In fact, she got to the point where she wanted to duck and dive underneath wires that were above her head at the finish line, and I bought the horse. And the first thing I did was I put a screen on her, and she got a lot better. And then I remembered the pacifier, the pelling thing, and I put her on the horse, and the horse trained good. I trained her from the gate with it, and the judges all approved it. There was no problem. But the jockey, DeCarlo at Delaware Park, wouldn't ride her because they never seen anything like it. They know what blinkers are, but they never saw blinkers with a screen
wire cage. Yeah.
And he wouldn't. Yeah. And I had to get. I told the judge. He took himself off, and the exercise rider who was in the paddock with me told the rider that the judges assigned that would agree to ride that the horse was okay. He assured him, and the horse won by open lengths, and that was the key to the horse. That a lot of good things. I was telling Marshall that my first meeting with Brett Pelling was that's the father, right? Brett Pelling's the father, or
no, Brett's the son.
Brian came up to Monticello in 1971 or 72, and he was in the same barn as me, and I learned more from that guy that. And I have to tell you, between the Swedes, the Canadians, and the Australians, they're much more knowledgeable than the American the horsemen around here. A lot was learned from Australia. Anyway, I don't want to dominate this thing. Go ahead, guys, say something.
Larry, you talk about the Australians and BP Brian Pelling going over there, and really your first contact with Australians, but through Mike Gagliardi, you had a great involvement with Mike, of course, him kicking off with you. And Mike, of course, was involved with John McMullen from our state, Queensland, Australia, who took horses traditionally there every year. And I have a great John McMullen story for you. And I know that John's son, Chris, is one of your subscribers. And Chris is a blacksmith, former trainer driver. The McMullen family is steeped in harness racing history here. And John told me once that he put an advertisement in a trade newspaper, the Trot Guide. And it was for a broodmare he had for sale, but she was blind. And John put in the ad, for sale, such and such broodmare, $850, whatever it was. And then he put situated at Oxley in Queensland, selling because I want to disperse of her, because she don't look too good. So he sold it. And the guy came back a month later and he said, this mare, I want my money back. He said, why is that? He said, the mare's blind. He said, yeah, I told you she didn't look too good.
Oh, boy. No, I don't even know. That's a funny story, but I don't know if that's true or not.
That's a true story. Well, Darren will tell you. Yeah. So
the wording got him. He just a word master. That's great. He brought over a lot of horses with Mike, and they did very well. Mike had the power and the strength at the Meadowlands, because I think Mike Gagliardi, who, by the way, worked for me when he first started, and in fact, when we all signed, when I got him his license, I gave him 3 horses that he used to paddock for me and took care of. I gave him them 3 horses as a gift when he went on his own. He went from Monticello to Rockingham. And from then he became like a superstar. I think he was the leading driver and trainer the first couple of years that the Meadowlands opened. So he had a good in with the race secretary, and they gave him a whole barn just to, whenever they would ship in with these 10, 15, 20 horses from Australia, they would give him he would give them the whole barn, and they would sell them the horses here. They did together. They did very well. I think he bought a horse called Nigel Craig. I think it was a trotter, and something happened to the horse on the way here, and the left stifle kept locking up, and he couldn't. And I happened to be in Florida at the time, and Mike had a big stable at the Meadowlands, and he sent the horse down to me, and within 4 months, I sent her back, and she won 9 races, 9 or 10 in a row. And so they had a pretty good reputation here. Mike sold a lot of horses, and that was it. Then I wind up getting barred in 1984. So I don't know much after that, but I know they had a good run here for a while. They did very well. I met him 2 or 3 times, and he was he was very much like you, just a nice guy, just a nice guy. And for some reason, the American guys that were born here, the accent gets you. You just have like a friendly accent, just like the people from the South. They just come up here and you can talk to them for hours. But yeah, McMullen and Mike did well here. Unfortunately, Mike, I guess he got cancer and he died 40, 45, 46 years old. He was a good guy.
Larry, they tell me you just said that you were out of it you were barred in 1984, and of course they were back in the days that you don't want to go back to again, your race fixing days. And I heard from a contact over there that's how you got your nickname. That you were race fixing with so many people. Your nickname, Larry, was arthritis. You're in every joint.
Oh boy, it's you know what it's like talking to you. It's like talking to a girl at a bar. And you're looking to get her home with you, and she keeps telling jokes.
Well, Larry, not on first dates with me. Darren, would you agree that the major problem today worldwide I guess the difference between performance enhancing drugs and welfare drugs for horses, that there maybe isn't enough of a delineation, and the punters per se are seeing somebody is outed with a drug infraction and straight away they call them a cheat when a lot of times they aren't.
Yeah, that's correct, Marshall. We have in Australia now in harness racing, I think thoroughbreds as well, it's a drug-free policy. So according to the rules, if you treat water, you can treat a horse with water, and if the stewards decide, well, that's a treatment, you can be penalised for it. And, like everyone will tell you, like things like Bute and Dexapant and Metacam are all nothing more than us taking a Panadol. But unfortunately, to the industry administrators and the punters, we all become cheats.
It's a major problem. Just for the American audience here, punters are bettors. So they probably don't understand what a punter is. So instead of me getting 100 emails, what's a punter? They're the bettors. But you're right. It's a major problem. Like I said before, when it went from a sport to a business and everybody's looking for an edge, they have drugs now. And I have a list of them that's probably 5 pages long. I won't get into that. I can't remember all their names. I can't pronounce half the names, and half of the drugs, they come in a bottle with blue and red labels and with nothing on them. But they come from all over the world, and it's causing major problems. I think they just, I don't know if the commission did it, but I know through some friends that they figured out why all these horses were breaking down, especially thoroughbreds and standardbreds too. They found a drug that they were using to solve one problem or to help one problem, but the side effects of that was weakening the bones and drawing calcium out of the bones. And it's just like us. Every drug has a side effect, and then you take another drug to handle the side effect, and before you know it, you're taking 50, and that's what's happening to these horses, and they're dropping like flies. I mean, when you get between the top thoroughbred guys, the top 5 thoroughbred trainers probably have 300 horses that died of heart attacks. I don't know. I can't name 10 horses in the standardbred industry that died of heart attacks, but they're getting there. The standardbred years ago was a much stronger, much tougher horse, can handle a lot more, but the breed is defining them more. It's hard to tell the difference between the thoroughbred and the standardbred now. And the drugs just keep coming, and it's terrible. I remember years ago when they come out with this elephant tranquilizer, they must have killed 1,000 horses before they found out the right dosage. And the right dosage was what was left in the hub of the needle. After you filled the syringe up, shoot it all out, and what was left in the hub was the proper dosage for an elephant tranquilizer. And an elephant tranquilizer given in that dose to a horse becomes a massive painkiller and stimulant, and it has the opposite effect. But they killed a lot of horses, and the same thing with just total abuse. And I don't know if you want to talk about Lasix. I don't know if they use Lasix over there, but if it was up to me, they would eliminate Lasix completely and just solve the problem for once and for all, which is kind of easy to do. But and that's the reason for heart attacks. All this fibrillation that's going on, it's drugs, and it's terrible. It's a terrible problem. I don't know how to solve it because they let everything get away from them. The commission in the United States, all the racing commissions in the United States. I don't know about over there where you are, but it become a political dumping grounds and full of people that put in positions of total incompetence. And that's why the racing from in the 70s and 80s, they had 30,000 people in the stands, and now they have 3 or 4 or 5. And if it wasn't for sports betting at the Meadowlands, they could probably shut it down. And it's sad.
Darren would be a greater authority, or he would be the authority on Lasix in his positions at Garrard's Horse and Hound, and also the BOTRA organisation that he's chairman of. But I know that time's on the wing. I know Darren would like to mention something about Lasix, but importantly, which we haven't said, the viewers have to hit like and subscribe to keep getting this, to get a bell, a notification when the next one of these podcasts come up. Very important. And if you're watching in Australia, like and subscribe to get this every week. It'll be out every Tuesday. But Darren, what are your thoughts on Lasix?
Well, Lasix actually is, you can't race on Lasix in Australia or New Zealand. I myself, my personal opinion, I don't believe in it. I don't believe in dehydrating horses and then asking them to race. I played a lot of football when I was younger and that sort of thing, and it was about hydration, not dehydration. And I think that that harms the horse. I think dehydration, and we all know electrolyte imbalances, etc., cause fibrillations, and Lasix could be a part of that. But that's my opinion. There's probably other people out there that may work their horses on Lasix, etc. But my stable, we don't use Lasix at all.
Well, your opinion is the right one. And anybody, and I challenge when I first started this podcast, I didn't. Everybody want to hear about the mob and all killings and all of that kind of stuff. And little by little, I got into the horse stuff because a lot of people asked me about it. And but the argument I get all the time is the Lasix argument, and I keep inviting these people. I says, come to my podcast, so we'll Zoom it, or you can come and sit right next to me, and we can debate about it, because it's my argument is kind of simple. When you change the whole balance of the whole electrolyte system, which I started all of this when years and years ago at Hialeah Park. I watched in the warm weather when it was hot down there in the summer. I watched every race, 2 or 3 horses fall down after the race was over. One in the race, and almost 2 or 3 after they come back and they unsaddle them, they're wobbly and everything else. And I started to pay attention really at that point. And from that point on, every horse that I had, even the ones that I claimed that were on Lasix, because in the States here, they start putting them on Lasix as 2-year-olds. What I did was the massive bleeders, and I did this with every horse. There's a lot of times when a horse in the United States, if a horse bleeds 3 times in a row, he can't race. He can't race no more. So they would put a horse, maybe a 30,000 claimer, in for 10 because he bled 2 times already, figuring out nobody's going to claim him, and he just keeps winning. I would claim them horses. And then what I would do is just simple stuff. Just hydrate them, massive doses for about 10 days of antibiotics, oxygen with medication in it, dry up all the lower half of each lung. That's what explodes. All the blood vessels down there are broken up, and because they're never given a chance to heal, they just become infected. So the lower half of both lungs is always loaded with pus and infection and never given a chance to heal, because with the standardbreds, every 7 days you're racing, and probably every 3 days in between you're training them, and they never have a chance to heal. And then they give them Lasix. And I used to go around with the veterinarian the last 10 years at the Meadowlands with Dr. DeLeo and Dr. Balmer, and they would have maybe 50, 60 horses a night each that they would have to give Lasix to. And because I just love the racetrack, I love the horses, I used to stay with the vets all afternoon and all night after my work was done at the barn. And they were trainers that they just think more is better. So the maximum dose you can give by law is 3 cc's of Lasix. They were given 5, and they were given 10, and then they would give them another 10 in the muscle. And after I think 6 or 7 cc's, the rest does absolutely nothing, because the horse you just completely dehydrate them, and then you expect them to go out there, and the only way they can once a horse's heart rate reaches over, I guess the horse's normal temperature is right around 100 degrees. After a race, if you took their temperatures, probably around 102 to 102 and a half. After 103 and a half, the body starts to malfunction. All the organs start to slow down. And by the time the temperature reaches 104, they're basically collapsed or dead. And that's what happens with Lasix. They're lucky around here that the temperatures stay pretty good, except in June, July, and August. And that's when you see a lot of this stuff happening with all the fibrillations and all of that stuff that happens. There is no reason for Lasix. All it does is dehydrate a horse, lowers the blood pressure, and it does absolutely nothing. It does nothing. So you can go on and on and get a little bit more specific about it, but I'm trying to speak in layman terms so a lot of the people understand it. But Darren, you're 100% right, and good for you.
You're talking about lowering blood pressure, Larry. I know whose blood pressure is increasing now, and it's your main man, Tom, because we're out of time. The question I have for you, though, I know that Jimmy is not with you this morning, sadly. He's out signing autographs. which is a for him. And
Jimmy is sitting right next to me, just out of camera range. Tom gets a little sticky once in a while, and he's a perfectionist, and he wants everything perfect, and he gets anxious, so we just turn him loose, and then he just gets.
I'm there in spirit, guys.
Well, great, Jimmy. You've struck the daily double from Australia anyway, Larry. And at our age, you know what a daily double is, don't you? When you get to our age, Larry, prune juice and an enema.
I got to ask you a question before you go. I guess thoroughbred racing in Australia is a lot bigger than harness racing, right?
Sure.
Correct.
Harness racing in Australia, they race year round.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, 7 days a week now these days.
And what do they have? 7, 8, 10 races a day?
Yeah, about that. Yeah.
So it's a big business down there. It's never there. A lot of people, when Stanley Dancer first bought Cardigan Bay, everybody shot to New Zealand and Australia to buy horses, and they were coming back with these things that some of the horses' heads, we didn't even have bridles that fit their heads. And then
cut off again.
The breed, I guess, got better and better and better, and now they're basically the same. But as far as your son goes, did you want him to come to the States, or he made that suggestion?
He went a couple of years ago. He had some offers to go, and we just thought he was too young. He was only 17 at the time. Probably if he decides to go, it'll be for, he might do a short trip just to see what he can learn and improve his skills. And he's probably a long way down the track. He's doing very well for himself here. He's helps me out with the horses as well. He's just, since he was, I think he long ranged his first pony at 18 months old. He was driving in the gig at 2.5, and he's just harness mad.
Well, if he comes here, I'm sure Ross Krogan, and there's one or two other guys that might give him a shot. But them guys are so tied into the leading guys here that it's going to be.
I think he's got a few years before he needs to think about that. He's got a lot of goals to fill here first.
All right. I thank you both for coming on. We're going to do this as many times as you want because there's so much to talk about. I just run my mouth too long. I never gave you poor guys a chance to speak. Is there anything you want to say before we finish up?
No, just thank you, and we look forward to the next one.
You said that you ran your mouth, Larry. I don't think that was the case, but we think of, when we talk about running your mouth, I always think of Marcel Marceau, the mime, the famous mime, Marcel Marceau. I wonder when he died, Larry, Marcel Marceau, if they held a minute's noise for him.
Very good. Very good. You could be sure I'm going to tell Tom to please cut that out when he edits this. I don't think he will, because Tom is like you. He likes these jokes. Anyway, I wish your son a lot of luck, and I hope to see you guys real soon. We'll do it again. Marshall, you tell me what we're doing tonight. We're going to do 2 or 3 of them because I may have to go to California. I think we're going to do that TV series about my life story. We can talk about that next time. So until then, thanks for coming on, and I'll see you.
That'll be great, Larry. Till next time. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Bye.